All right, we are live outside of Great Lakes Naval Base in North Chicago. Come on in, folks. They got feeds up outside this base. Anticipation of federal authorities arriving to this base as soon as today. We're talking about Chicago, Illinois. Chicago, Illinois, folks. We got a base takeover. They say Fed secure naval station Great Lakes Base for immigration blitz, they're calling it. They're calling it an immigration blitz. And it appears the Department of Defense has secured this naval base for an immigration blitz that's supposed to take effect imminent, and possible National Guard troops. Come on in, folks. This is a conversation that we've been talking about all weekend, talking about the Chicago violence that continues to rise. Numerous people killed over the weekend. 9, they're saying. 9. Some reports 8. 54 people shot. President of the United States put out a series of messages on Truth Social this morning calling Chicago the murder capital of the world. So this is Great Lakes. This is Naval Station Great Lakes. It's in North Chicago. The plan, according to the Sun-Times, the Chicago Sun-Times, would bring federal agents with the Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and U.S. Customs and Border Patrol to the base. From what happens at that point, we don't know. But what we know is the talk all weekend. As we discussed over the weekend, Brandon Johnson, Mayor of Chicago, signed an executive order about he said within days, militarized troops taking the streets of Chicago. We've heard Pritzker. By the way, Pritzker and Trump have history together when it comes to hotels. I started doing a little digging and deep diving a little bit on Pritzker. Pritzker's family owns the Hyatt hotels. And back in the past, they beefed a little bit with the Trump hotels. So because something told me a little bit about Pritzker, I sensed there's something personal between Pritzker and Trump. Something personal here. Pritzker's family are billionaires off the hotel industry. But Pritzker's telling Trump and the troops to stay out. We got this under control. There was a shooting on Eisenhower Expressway today that shut down literally the interstate on the inbound lanes because someone shot someone, it appears, from the streets onto the interstate. When you got shootings that occur right outside Chicago police headquarters in Bronzeville, you have a problem. You have a big, big problem. Now, there's not much activity going on here right now, but the feed is up as if multiple DHS agents, ICE agents, Border Patrol, they all arrived to this base. This base has been officially taken over by the Department of Defense as far as securing the base. Now, people that have been arriving here, probably DHS agents. They're saying there's a building within this base called Building 617, and that will be given to DHS to conduct operations. It's unclear if agents will actually stay on the base. Over the weekend, protesters took the streets. I think the whole nation is going to be watching Chicago in the next couple days. This is imminent. Now, that order that we saw in reference to the base yesterday, reported by local media, said from September 2nd, which is today, day after Labor Day, to the 30th. That's the plans here. Lori Lightfoot actually chimed in. Remember the old mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot? She tweeted out this morning about all these faith leaders. An open letter to Trump that was signed by massive amount of faith leaders that are saying, no National Guard, no National Guard. This is what Trump put out himself this morning. At least 54 people were shot in Chicago over the weekend. 8 were killed. The last 2 weekends were similar. Chicago is the worst and most dangerous city in the world by far. That's what he put out. Pritzker needs help badly. He just doesn't know it yet. Ooh. I will solve the crime problem fast, just like I did in D.C. Chicago will be safe again, and soon. And then he says, make America great again. He follows up with another post. Chicago is the murder capital of the world. All at the same time, it appears people are starting to come to the base. This is going to be like ground zero. We shall see. We shall see. Fed secured Naval Station Great Lakes for Chicago immigration blitz. Base staff have been advised that the facility will be providing support in the form of office space for a command center and portable laundry units. One source told the Sun-Times. The Chicago Sun-Times is reporting this morning. But federal agents will not be housed on the site. The Department of Defense has secured the Naval Station Great Lakes for an immigration blitz. The initial plan, detailed in email obtained by the Sun-Times, would bring federal agents with numerous departments. Again, Homeland Security, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and U.S. Customs and Border Protection to the Navy's largest training station and the largest military installation in the state near North Chicago. Per the plan in a previously reported email to base leadership, federal agents will be given control of Building 617, which houses the Navy College Learning Center and the Morale. The operation will last from September 2 to September 30th. This comes just days after Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson signed an executive order aiming to protect the Chicago Police Department from being federalized. We'll put up the skyline. Their feed went away. Their feed was pretty choppy here, I noticed. I don't know if they can get reception out there. Sometimes when you go near military bases, the reception gets bad. Stand by for more live. I want to see what's going on here. Maybe they're going to redo the feed or something, put their thing because of the choppiness. But folks, we need to talk about this situation because I think it's coming to a head and fast. This comes just days after Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson signed an executive order aiming to protect the Chicago Police Department from being federalized. Another Know Your Rights initiative centered around federal agents in the National Guard and suggestions for federal agents to follow municipal code around policing under the threat of a lawsuit from Johnson. By the way, a San Francisco judge just stopped the National Guard from being deployed into Los Angeles. Temporary restraining order. President Trump, border czar Tom Homan, on Thursday confirmed the ramp-up deportation campaign in Chicago is in the works, with a large contingent of agents, though Homan didn't specify how many. Operations are ramping up across the country, but you can see a ramp up across the operations in Chicago. Absolutely, Homan said. The Attorney General for Chicago also spoke this morning to Chicago media about the situation. I don't know what happened here to the military base. It kind of went away. Maybe they come back. Maybe they pick a new spot. We got to see what's going on here. This will be interesting. For sure. Now, I say the President of the United States making an announcement at 2 p.m. today. I don't think it's centered around Chicago. I think it's centered around the stuff about a base up there in some other planet. It's interesting. Chicago Sun-Times also says 54 people shot, 9 killed over Labor Day weekend, marking the most violent holiday weekend ever in Chicago. 16 people wounded over the weekend and 3 mass shootings. Chicago saw its most violent holiday weekend ever as President Trump threatens to send the National Guard into the city. National spotlight. Trump has called the city a killing field and planned to send National Guard troops as soon as possible to Chicago. So it seems like that's happening soon. And I think it's starting today. Even the AG weighs in. We'll get that AG up shortly so you can listen to AG. The Attorney General of Illinois, he spoke. They may arrive this week. We'll share his clip.
Just about 7:24, everyone. President Trump's crime and immigration crackdown could be hitting Chicagoland as soon as this week. It has received mixed reviews in the nation's capital and plenty of rebuke from Illinois politicians in advance. But plans don't appear to be slowing down. So I'm joined now by Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul. Thank you so much for being back with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
There's so much going on. Let's get right into this. You have called this move performative and illegal. Very strong words. How so? And even though we are already seeing protests against it, what legal tools do you actually have to prevent it or to fight back at this point?
Yeah, well, we've sued the administration at least 35 times. Most recently, our latest suit was to challenge the conditioning of funding for victims of crime. And so it seems disingenuous why I say it's performative. How do you condition funding for victims of crime? How do you release force trigger resets? How do you cut off funding for crime interruption, community violence interruption, and say you're really concerned about the crime? Listen, we undoubtedly have a crime problem in Chicago, as all major cities in America do. However, law enforcement officials have worked hard. Crime is on the way down. We still have a lot of work to do. We've had great collaborations with federal law enforcement officials, the FBI, the DEA, ATF, other agencies. If the president were serious, he wouldn't be sending in military troops who are not trained in crime fighting. He could beef up FBI agents. He could beef up ATF or DEA, who collaborate with local law enforcement. Instead, he's not communicating. He's not attempting to collaborate. He just wants to demonstrate an authoritarian demonstration of force as a Putin would, or as they would in China or Korea. That's not what the United States of America is.
Let me break down a few different things. So you said a lot there, and I want to start with the lawsuit portion of it. You were a part of states attorneys general, I think it was 21 altogether, who filed a brief when the guard was called up in California in June. They did still end up there. So how do you expect this to be different?
Well, the suit in California is still pending, that went to trial. There was demonstrations and violence that erupted in California that led to an argument that the president needed the National Guard to keep their immigration enforcement activity effective, to protect them from disruption. There's no such disruption going on in Chicago right now. I would hope that people who would protest this notion of the National Guard coming in would do so peacefully. Otherwise, you're playing into his bait. That is precisely what he wants, to make an argument that, oh, this is necessary to tamp things down. You know, we can demonstrate peacefully. We demonstrated that during the Democratic National Convention last year. Superintendent Snelling has demonstrated that he's a great superintendent. He can manage protests as well as he could focus on the crime, as crime is going down. We've had a number of mass shootings and horrific events, and so I'm in no way saying that we don't need to focus on the crime. We absolutely do, and we need to do so in partnership with federal law enforcement, not the National Guard.
Okay, so a few things there. You talked about playing into certain things. Obviously, a lot of people are looking at what happened over the weekend. The Trump administration repeatedly calling out Chicago's violence before the weekend and especially now after. We did have, in fact, over 50 people shot, which is just horrific. I mean, anybody can call that out for what it is. But on the other hand, I'm glad to hear you put your faith behind Superintendent Snelling. He's talked about, and the administration, the Brandon Johnson administration has talked about, you know, numbers coming down in our city. But in last week's press conference, you mentioned these federal partners, the DEA, the ATF, this one-team approach. Is that a concept that really is possible at this point? Is that broken at this point?
No, it's not broken. It's part of the reason why crime has gone down. Use an example, the ATF. Chris Amon, who's the special agent in charge of the ATF, they share a crime gun intelligence center with the Chicago police. They invite us in, the state police, other Cook County sheriffs, and they're using the state-of-the-art technology to fight gun crimes, and it's working. It is working, and so I don't mind the president being concerned about crime in Chicago and wanting to send resources into Chicago. Send the right resources in. It's not the National Guard. That's not sustainable. They're not trained to fight crime. And it's an un-American display.
Well, when you say they're not sustainable, I think they can only be here for 30 days at most. So thank you so much for your time, and please keep us updated.
That's the Attorney General.
Thousands of people took to the streets of Chicago this Labor Day to protest plans by President Trump to send National Guard troops into the city. The president has called Chicago, quote, a mess, and he wants the Guard to help fight crime there, as troops are already doing so in Washington. Nancy Cortez is at the White House with more on that.
Chicago officials say they're hearing it will be days, not weeks, before National Guard troops, like the ones patrolling D.C., arrive in their city over their objections.
You're supposed to serve the people. We are the people.
Over the long weekend, President Trump mentioned Chicago 3 times on social media, warning the Illinois governor to straighten out crime fast or we're coming. This weekend alone, more than 50 people were shot in Chicago, though the murder rate has fallen by 50% over the past 4 years.
Every single citizen deserves to be safe.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem confirmed on Face the Nation that a greater federal presence is coming to Chicago, starting with a surge in immigration raids.
We do intend to add more resources to those operations. I won't disclose the details because they are law enforcement and investigative folks that are on the ground there, and I want to make sure we keep their security our #1 priority.
In Washington, D.C., there are now 2,300 National Guard troops armed and deployed, though by law they cannot perform law enforcement duties themselves.
This is an erratic, impulsive administration.
On Saturday, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson signed an executive order directing the Chicago Police Department not to collaborate with military personnel on police patrols or ICE raids.
We do not want to see tanks in our streets. We do not want to see families ripped apart. We do not want grandmothers thrown into the back of unmarked vans.
This now from the White House. As the president weighs whether troops will end up in Chicago next, has he given any indication as to how long those National Guard troops will stay in D.C.? What's the long-term plan?
Jerika, the president hasn't given an end date yet. He simply says that he wants to make sure that crime levels here in D.C. don't bounce back to their former levels once the Guard leaves town. Now, Democrats have argued that by law, he needs to go to Congress for approval if he wants to extend their employment past 30 days. And it's been about 20 so far. But President Trump says he thinks Congress is going to side with him.
All right, Nancy Cordes at the White House. Thank you.
All right, come on in. Trying to give you a few clips, take you back out in front of the naval base, Great Lakes Naval Base in North Chicago, as starting to fill up with people arriving. Apparently, DHS agents, Department of Homeland Security officials, Border Patrol, ICE agents are planning to arrive here soon, if not here now, and for some sort of massive operation going to take place in Chicago. All eyes on Chicago. Looks pretty big, busy and active here at this facility. They say they're going to be at building 617 of the base. What does that all mean? What does that all mean? It will get interesting for sure. I guess their feed is back up. It looks much, much better. Woo! Crazy, folks. And here we are, military base takeover. Officially, according to documents obtained by the Chicago Sun-Times. Will we see National Guard troops coming in, patrolling the streets, like we see in Washington, D.C.? But people have said Washington, D.C., every element of crime has gone down since the National Guard has been patrolling out there. With about 20 days, they say now. The numbers they're putting out is saying carjackings down 83%. Carjackings was a big thing in D.C. Robberies down 46%. Overall violent crime, 25%. Car thefts down 21%. Some of the parks have been cleaned up, graffiti removed. On bridges, overpass, parks, street corners, under tunnels. There are a lot of tunnels in D.C. Now, Chicago, Lightfoot put out this tweet. It's an open letter to Trump. It was signed by Chicago's faith community. Dear Mr. President, the prophet Ezekiel warned of shepherds who devour the sheep instead of feeding them. Today, you stand before Chicago not as a shepherd, but as a wolf draped in the false garments of public safety. coming from the faith leaders. They're calling Trump a wolf, draped in false garments of public safety, howling about chaos in a city where the numbers tell a radically different story. Let us speak in the language of truth you seem allergic to. Under Mayor Johnson's leadership, Chicago has witnessed a more than 30% decline in homicides. Robberies have plummeted almost 35%. And community violence intervention groups have helped reduce shootings by almost 40%. We experienced the safest April since 1962. More than 6 decades of progress you're desperate to erase with jackboots and manufactured fear. This is coming from signed by 100 faith-based leaders and pastors and bishops and reverends in Chicago. Your declaration to send military troops to occupy our streets is not governance. It is the desperate flailing of a failing autocrat who mistakes brutality for strength. When a man has no vision for tomorrow, he wages war on today. When a leader possesses no substantive policies to heal a nation's wounds, he opens new ones with the sword of state violence. As Chicago's faith community, we have held Mayor Johnson accountable every step of this violence reduction journey, demanding he address root causes rather than merely manage symptoms. Yet you, Mr. President, have withheld the very federal funds earmarked to directly address crime in our city. Funds that could have accelerated the remarkable progress we're already witnessing. What are we witnessing in Chicago? Because I'm witnessing something much different than what these faith leaders are saying. I don't know what these faith leaders are even talking about here, but they have an open letter to Trump. You'll deploy troops against Chicago's children, but refuse to deploy resources for the homeless veterans. You send soldiers to patrol our neighborhoods, but won't send the federal investment that could help transform them. Your cruelty is not accidental. It is strategic, designed to create the chaos you then claim to solve. The real violence in Chicago, like the real violence across America, is not the violence of the streets, but the violence of policy. Underfunded schools, disappearing jobs, healthcare deserted, food shortages, and a criminal justice system that treats poverty like a capital offense. Mayor Johnson addresses these with every initiative. You could accelerate this with the stroke of a pen, but destruction is easier than construction for the minds too small to envision homelessness. To the faithful of Chicago, I say this: prepare your hearts for resistance. That's a call of action. That's a call of action. Prepare your hearts for resistance. We are witnessing democracy's demise at this very moment. When the forces of authoritarianism believe the hour of darkness has come, but weeping may endure for a night, joy comes in the morning. And to you, Mr. President, I find prophetic words. The God who liberated the Israelites from Pharaoh's bondage still sits on the throne of justice. The arc of the moral universe still bends towards righteousness. And Chicago, beautiful, resilient, unbreakable Chicago, will still be standing long after your presidency becomes a cautionary tale in the history books. We are not afraid of troops, sir. We are afraid for the soul of the nation that would elect a leader who confuses fear with respect, occupation with safety. But make no mistake, we will resist. We will endure. We will overcome. In solidarity, the faith leaders of Chicago. This was put out by Lori Lightfoot. I was saying to Magnolia today, whatever happened to Lori Lightfoot? So the faith leaders are backing Mayor Johnson on this. So you have most of the aldermen and most of the city council back no troops. Some aldermen do, though. Some few. Mayor Johnson's inner circle, as you saw them on display a couple days ago, executive order, they say no to troops. Now the faith-based leaders of Chicago say no. Pritzker, no. And here we are in this moment. Chicago. Will we see National Guard? Look, it's filling up. The base is filling up. Chicago has a population of 2.5 million, 2.6 million. And here we are. The third biggest populated U.S. city behind Los Angeles and New York City, which, by the way, Los Angeles had National Guard there. Apparently, a judge has stopped them from bringing the National Guard back. Last night was pretty wild down there at the Federal Building and back at that Ground Zero Federal Building in Los Angeles. There was people confronting a line of federal troops. We are live. This is live outside the Great Lakes Naval Base in North Chicago. Darlene Gilmore, thank you for the comment earlier, says Chicago has turned into killing fields. Pritzker and Johnson, thanks for what you do. You're welcome. Thank you, Darlene, for the comment. Turning into the killing fields. Here we are. We're calling this military base takeover, because that's exactly what we have here, according to the Chicago Sun-Times. The Labor Day weekend was the most violent weekend. Oh, yeah, most violent weekend ever in Chicago, they say. But don't forget, critics of Pritzker, who's against National Guard being sent, have called out the governor saying, well, you deployed National Guard yourself. You deployed the National Guard yourself to assist police when they had the DNC. Remember the DNC convention in Chicago? About a year ago. And a year ago, the DNC was in Chicago. Well, Pritzker deployed the National Guard there. 250 National Guard got deployed there at the DNC, but now he's against the National Guard being out there. And not only that, but he deployed them to assist the Chicago police. But what they're saying here is they don't want federal National Guard out there. They don't want the police That's part of the executive order, not to work with them. Make that make sense to tackle crime, but you send the National Guard to protect the elites behind a convention building by putting up fencing and having the National Guard out there at the time, which they were there, but you don't want any type of solution to help tackle crime in Chicago. Maybe the feds are coming in to look into operations of how Johnson and Pritzker does business. And they know their businesses and their ventures and their operations when it comes to whatever will be exposed. Listen, I want to make this perfectly clear. I am in support of restoring law and order in Chicago. But I'm open to different people's input and perspective. Everyone has an opinion. Something has to be done here. These residents are being terrorized. The amount of crime that we've been seeing happening in Chicago, and I don't believe any of the numbers. Regardless if they say numbers are down, I don't believe the numbers. The eyes show that Chicago has a big problem. Pop-up parties that pop up, which results in shootings. Pop-up parties with large amounts of people that just congregate to locations, causing disturbances, while police don't even intervene and just stand by and wait for these problems to happen. Street takeovers continue to rise. It is summer. Almost every weekend, some sort of street takeover in Chicago where they take over a complete intersection, launch fireworks up in the sky, shoot guns up in the air, spin their cars around, jump on hoods, girls twerking, everyone hooting and hollering, gangs meeting up. Legal immigration, Chicago, ICE, the city of Chicago, Cook County, not enforcing ICE detainers. Anyone that has an ICE detainer, they just kick them loose. It's part of the reason why the feds are going in. As Johnson said, we are a welcoming city of whoever. During the course of the last few years, 4 years, we'll say from 2021 to 2025, January, I mean, we don't know how many people have descended into Chicago. Gang members, MS-13, Tren de Aragua, from the people that cross through the southern border. Crime, gangs, shootings, youth. To me, it's out of control in Chicago as far as the violence. I mean, it's so bad that literally Michigan Avenue has boarded up. Many businesses of Michigan Avenue are boarded up. And they tried to come up with a solution a few months back by sending in county sheriffs to patrol the area. Muggings, carjackings, shootings, robberies, pickpocketers, rising homeless population. Again, I don't think homelessness should be criminalized. I'm just saying with the combination of it all, part of the problem Chicago has. Is there anything good out of Chicago? Those people are trying to say Brandon Johnson has some really good initiatives that has been making Chicago better. Really? Really? You got literally Brandon Johnson that is going against the federal government. That's not a good look. Got to work with your federal partners here. People saying arrest the mayor. Mayor Johnson's approval rating is literally like 9%. The worst ever. I consider him a lame duck. Is this his last dance because he knows his days are numbered and he has to save face and he's using his foot soldiers, which is like teacher union, DSA protesters to back him to create some sort of resistance bubble because maybe he knows he's under investigation. Maybe he knows he's about to be gone. So this is his last fight. This is his last dance before his House crumbles. Military base. I see a lot of people want to know what's going on. We are at the Great Lakes Naval Base in North Chicago. The Great Lakes Naval Base. So it's like getting close to the Wisconsin border. Pretty far up there. So, you know, they'll use this as a staging area. They'll probably head out there and go up the Interstate 94 and head down into downtown Chicago and do some stuff. What are they going to do? I personally think it's going to be first DHS agents and ICE Border Patrol enforcing immigration law, and then the National Guard will be standby to assist them and protect them so they can do their job. Hey, Kevin. Nice to see you. Thank you. Crystal D. Thank you for the comment. Kathy M. Welcome to JLR Investigates. Beth M. Welcome to JLR Investigates. But here we are. I don't know what's going to happen here. People are arriving. Or maybe this is just normal personnel. Call this military base takeover. Chicago, Illinois. See what else is circulating around Chicago. Some of these neighborhoods are like no-go zones because they've been taken over by gangs. Now, there was some protesters out there. It was Labor Day. I think it was labor issues too, but there were protesters out there. Fox News has a report the law is squarely on Trump's side. The law is on Trump's side with this. We want to hear different perspectives. You know, I want to hear all sides of the issue. Like to hear all sides of what's going on. We're just monitoring what's going on here for a bit. Fault. We take you to Chicago. All you got to do is put the word Chicago in X, and everything that you see is negative. What they're trying to say is, the common theme that I'm seeing with the faith-based leaders, Pritzker, the AG, even the lieutenant governor, Stratton, has chimed in and say, we are making progress in Illinois and in Chicago on crime, and Donald Trump wants to manufacture a crisis. Keep hearing about the manufactured crisis aspect. Well, look, police just left. They're saying most of the homicide victims in Chicago, 80% are African American.
Democrats in Illinois refusing help from President Trump as he zeroes in on Chicago after a violent holiday weekend that left dozens hurt and at least 7 dead.
Madeline Rivera joins us live from Washington with the latest. Good morning, Maddie.
Good morning. The president has promised the administration will act quickly if Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker does not, quote, straighten things out in Chicago. We will see what he does next then after NBC Chicago reports 54 people were shot and 7 people were killed in the Windy City over Labor Day weekend. Still, Pritzker maintains there is no need for the National Guard because he says there is no emergency in Chicago. He's suggesting the president isn't even focused on crime, but on something else entirely.
The other aims are that he'd like to stop the elections in 2026 or, frankly, take control of those elections. The playbook is the same. It's thwart the media. It's create mayhem that requires military interdiction. These are things that happen throughout history, and Donald Trump is just following that playbook.
Pritzker adds troops cannot legally work to enforce the law in Chicago, so Chicago's Mayor Brandon Johnson has an executive order limiting how much the city's police department can work with troops and federal immigration agents. The order states that Chicago police can continue to enforce state and local laws, but it will not work with the National Guard or federal agents on patrols, arrests, and immigration enforcement. Here's Johnson taking to the streets on Monday.
We're going to defend our democracy in the city of Chicago. We're going to protect the humanity of every single person in the city of Chicago. No troops in Chicago. No troops in Chicago.
The president is set to give an announcement today at 2 p.m. local time. We will see if he has anything more to say regarding his threats to step in Chicago. Lawrence, Ainsley, and Griff.
All right, Maddie.
Thanks, Maddie.
Thank you very much.
So I guess, Ainsley, Griff, the big question is, if you don't want the federal troops in, if you don't want the federal agents in to help you, then who's going to stop the bloodbath that are happening in all of these liberal cities? And it has nothing to do with elections. This has to do with the dignity of these children. How many times, Ainsley, did I travel around the country with Sean, going interviewing families that their kids were just murdered and no politician in the local area did anything about it?
This is all about common sense, right? You would think that you would want to clean up your city if after a Labor Day weekend, 54 people are shot. 7 people will never come home to their families again because they lost their lives. And there was the Chicago businessman, he also ran for mayor, Willie Wilson, and he said violence has been going on for so long that Democratic Party has failed the citizens of Chicago and the state of Illinois, and he supports Donald Trump's crime crackdown. And he said, I support him 1,000%. The mayor and the governor have a lot of security around them, but what about the security around the people?
Well, because cracking down on crime, excuse me, is a common sense issue. And Lawrence, to your point, you've spoken to the grieving families of victims in Chicago, 57 shot over the weekend, but more than 250, I believe it's over 260 now, have been killed this year. So tell the families of those killed in Chicago that it's not needed. Jeanine Pirro, the U.S. Attorney for D.C., who has had remarkable success cracking down, more than 1,500 arrests over the last 3 weeks, was talking about crime in other cities. Listen here.
President Obama to come out and make a comment on Chicago, a city that is his city, that has been one of the most violent cities in America, that has shootings and killings frequently since I can remember. Every weekend there's shootings in Chicago. What are they doing about it? What they're doing is they're turning to politics and they're turning to anything anti-Trump. You speak to any of the crime victims that I speak to, any of the parents of murdered kids and teenagers, then you'll get a sense of how disappointed people are in these leaders who'd rather play politics. And when Muriel Bowser, the Democrat mayor of D.C., can say violent crime is down by 50% because of this surge, you want to criticize that? You want to say they don't deserve to come in and protect our people? We want our people to be victims of violent crime and we don't care about it? Shame on them.
I guess the last thing I would say on this is that I didn't predict going into the midterms and going to these governor races like Virginia or going into New York, which you got a candidate that says that he wants to defund the police, that this was going to be an election issue. I mean, it wasn't one of the top 3 issues when we were just covering the presidential race. But the reason why it's going to be an issue is because the Democrats have once again put themselves on the wrong side of something that is just like 90-10, which is public safety. Do you support law enforcement? You know, we had the Summer of Love where we defunded the police and we saw how bad it got. I don't understand why the Democrats are doubling down on this when there's a midterms approaching.
Yeah, I mean, we saw in the election, the big issue was not only the economy, but also closing the border. And now the elections going forward, this will be a big issue, crime, because we're seeing these numbers.
Trump is not focused on public safety.
Lieutenant Governor.
Anytime that there's crime anywhere in our state or around the country, We want to continue to see progress being made, and we are making progress here in Illinois and in the city of Chicago. But this is not about public safety, and this is not about making our residents safer. What Donald Trump wants to happen is he wants to manufacture a crisis. He's going to, as we just talked about, there's going to be a surge of ICE enforcement efforts. He knows that people will see those efforts and then want to speak out. People, good, decent people, will be heartbroken to see their neighbors being snatched off the streets and stuffed into unmarked cars. He wants to inflame tensions, and he wants to make sure that that he can cause some sort of crisis that he can say that he's coming to the rescue. And what we know is that we are going to follow the law here in Illinois. We are going to do everything we can to protect our residents, and we're not going to allow this president who wants to manufacture a crisis, who wants to, quite frankly, make the military presence on American soil something that people normalize. We are going to speak out. We are going to be prepared to do everything we can to protect the residents of our state.
That's the lieutenant governor. So she's on board with Pritzker, Johnson.
Well, as you know, for the past few weeks, National Guard troops to Chicago has been the topic of discussion. As you mentioned, much mixed reaction. Of course, the Illinois veterans will hold a press conference today to say no to the deployment of troops, while the Illinois Freedom Caucus says they want local leaders to accept federal crime assistance. Now, over the Labor Day weekend, 50 people were shot, 8 people died. According to President Trump, this is why he wants to crack down on crime in the city of Chicago. Mayor Brandon Johnson and Governor J.B. Pritzker both reject the deployment of troops. Pritzker called it dangerous. Johnson says it's federal overreach. Johnson signed an executive order on Saturday establishing the Protecting Chicago initiative. It aims to protect residents from the potential mobilization of National Guard troops in the city and demands that President Trump stands down on his threats to send troops for crime and immigration. Mayor Johnson attended a Labor Day rally yesterday where the focus was promoting workers' rights and opposing the policies of the Trump administration. However, he did chant against national troops.
No federal troops in the city of Chicago. No militarized force in the city of Chicago. We're going to defend our democracy in the city of Chicago. We're going to protect the humanity of every single person in the city of Chicago.
Now, the Fraternal Order of Police Chicago Lodge number 7 made a social media post yesterday. It reads, "Crime is down. The murderous mindset is not. Just like the numbers can explode, until we have more cops, some federal help is welcomed and appreciated." And also happening today, Governor J.B. Pritzker will hold a press conference in Chicago at 3 p.m. I'm live here from the Federal Plaza. Winnie Dortch, WGN News.
That will be interesting. A 3 p.m. press conference by Pritzker. Also, another press conference you heard
expecting to hear more
from another group.
Governor Pritzker as President Trump continues to threaten to send the National Guard into Chicago.
Mayor Brandon Johnson sending a very clear message: keep the troops out of this city. Let's go to MC5's Lisa Chavarria in the control center this morning. So, Lisa, is President Trump expected to talk today?
That's right, Michelle and Patrick. The president is expected to make an announcement at 1 o'clock our time from the Oval Office. But we're just learning a senior White House official is telling NBC News the announcement will be focused on defense. We're still working to learn more about that. In the meantime, Mayor Brandon Johnson says the city is aware the federal government is sending more federal agents this week, as early as Friday. But could that include the National Guard? We're still working to confirm that. Governor Pritzker will speak about these reports at 3 this afternoon. 2 federal law enforcement officials confirmed to NBC News that ICE, Border Patrol, and other federal agencies are planning to arrest more undocumented immigrants in Chicago starting this week. Mayor Johnson making it clear, keep ICE agents and National Guard troops out of Chicago. Over the weekend, he signed an executive order affirming Chicago police will not be helping federal or ICE agents. Mayor Johnson had this to say in front of a crowd at a Labor Day rally yesterday.
There are some people believe that we don't have the power to beat authoritarianism, but I'm also a history teacher as well. We have stood up for the interests of workers before, and we will do it again. And no matter what comes from the White House, Chicago will always be a labor town. Are you with me, Chicago?
When it comes to sending troops here, President Trump insists the National Guard being deployed to the city is to help crack down on crime. The city saw more than 50 people shot and 7 killed over just this holiday weekend. Chicago's Fraternal Order of Police posted on social media saying, until we have more cops, some federal help is welcome. Mayor Johnson said on Saturday that the city has received credible reports that they have days, not weeks, before Chicago sees more federal agents. Again, Governor Pritzker will be speaking about these federal deployments at 3 this afternoon. We will air that live for you today, both on air and online. Michelle.
The entire city. We will hear more today
Whoa.
from Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker responding to President Trump's threats to send the National Guard to Chicago if, as he says, city and state leaders don't get crime under control.
The president has suggested using federal troops to crack down on crime and illegal immigration. So today at 3, Pritzker plans to speak publicly on why he says that would be illegal and dangerous. Illinois' Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton also speaking out against that move.
What people are looking for, the exact things that Donald Trump is stripping away. We need access to education, but he's dismantling the Department of Education. We need access to health care, and he's stripping away Medicaid. We need families to be able to put food on the table, and he's stripping away SNAP benefits and making the cost of groceries go up. These are not the things that get to the root causes of violence or crime. And we are going to stay focused on doing what works here in Illinois. It's been working, and we're going to continue making progress. We're not where we need to be, but we're headed that way.
Stratton also accused the president of trying to manufacture a crisis and normalize the image of federal troops on city streets. Also today, some Republican lawmakers are speaking out in support of the president's plans. The Illinois Freedom Caucus is mostly made up of Republicans from downstate Illinois. They'll gather at 11 o'clock today, saying it's time that Governor Pritzker and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson stop pretending that they have solved violence in Chicago. They are welcoming federal assistance to restore safety in the city.
But Illinois Democrats are using their platform to oppose the president's efforts. Nearly every Illinois Democrat in the House and Senate signed a letter demanding that Trump and the Pentagon suspend their plans to send military members to Chicago. They're calling the move an unlawful power grab and an overreach by the executive branch.
This all follows a spike in gun violence over Labor Day weekend. More than 50 people were hurt in shootings. 3 of those incidents are considered mass shootings. 7 people were killed. That is nearly twice the number of gunshot victims compared to Labor Day weekend of last year. We spoke to a former commander for the Chicago Police Department who says that she welcomes the National Guard as long as they don't interfere with local police.
The National Guard is there to deter, they're there to support. They are not there to take over policing.
Chicago police said they will release more information on the crime numbers from this weekend later on today.
All right, so we got some big things happening in the next few hours on top of, the ICE agents and DHS arriving at this base. We have Pritzker that's speaking today at 3 p.m. We also have, this is clearly a partisan issue. We're trying to bring all sides to the situation. I have my opinion on the matter. But apparently there's going to be a press conference coming up in the next 20 minutes. I believe it's the Republican Freedom Caucus in Illinois or some sort of Republican group at 12 p.m. Eastern. That's the way I heard it here. It's going to speak somewhere on this matter in Illinois. Governor speaking at 3, and then also the President of the United States is speaking today in Washington. I don't know if it's going to be on this particular issue itself. I'm sure this will be brought up because of a series of True Social posts that he's been making. But we take you back live in front of this naval base here, Great Lakes Naval Base. Now, I saw you, Slade Moak said earlier, why call it a military takeover if it's a military base? And that's a great question. The media is reporting that the feds have secured this naval station base to conduct a immigration blitz. So they've taken over the base specifically for an operation that is planned to happen in Chicago, according to the Chicago Sun-Times. So they're going to be using this base as a staging ground to then go in and, the base has been taken over by DHS and federal officials, Department of Defense, even though I get what you're saying. It's already a military base, but that is the plan here. They're calling it, they have secured the base specifically for an immigration blitz operation that could start as early as this week, if not today. You see the alarm bells going up all over the place. So far on this live, we played, over the weekend, we shared Pritzker, Brandon Johnson. We've heard from the lieutenant governor. We've heard from the attorney general of Illinois. We're trying to give you all sides perspective. I'm in support of this, but we also want to hear from all sides on the issue. They're saying that, the federal government is cutting funding for education to tackle crime. And if you cut funding, crime is going to go up, more or less. We shall see. It's definitely a standoff. I think is much bigger than what we saw in Los Angeles. I think this is much bigger than Los Angeles because I see a lot of rhetoric. Mayor is actively encouraging people to take the streets. The mayor. But the mayor, not only the mayor doesn't even want National Guard there, but the mayor doesn't even want ICE there. He's saying no ICE. Now, how is that even possible considering Chicago is a sanctuary city? He calls it a welcoming city, but it's known as a sanctuary city. Many, 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 many people that crossed into the United States illegally and that are committing crimes, they get arrested. They almost get slapped on the wrist. Now, those numbers also, it appears, they get charged and then they get it knocked down to lesser crimes so they can get kicked back out onto the streets, unpunished. And ICE puts detainers on people, and they don't even enforce the detainers. Cook County police cut these people loose, and they go back out on the streets and commit more crimes. Also, the reports have come out that a lot of these people that have been rounded up illegally for crimes in Chicago, when they get arrested, they purposely change their names and manipulate their names so they don't come up into the database for ICE to put detainers on these people. They kind of make, they switch their middle name to their last name and manipulate the process. So ICE wants to go in there and arrest violent criminals. Brandon Johnson saying that ICE is going to go arrest grandmothers and elderly people and kids and put them in unmarked vans with masks and stuff like that. I haven't necessarily saw that at all anywhere in this country. What we've been seeing, and, I'll call it out as it is. I'm like, they literally putting grandmas in trucks? I haven't seen it. What I've been seeing is ICE rounding up criminals and targeted enforcement. They got targeted names that they're looking for people, and they already have the deportation orders, or they already have removal orders, or they're wanted for crimes. Not only in the United States, but in other countries too. They're wanted for crimes, and ICE has a list, and they're going around rounding people up. I don't see kids and women and children. I don't see them going door to door asking for paperwork. I haven't seen it. Unless you've seen it, I haven't seen it. I've seen them actually rounding up criminals. But they want to make it appear that ICE is going to go around and just round everybody up. I don't think that's the case. But it's good to say that to the people to incite the masses to resist what's going on. Chicago is one of the biggest sanctuary cities in the country. I mean, Mayor Johnson has messed the budget up so badly that he was trying to house all these migrants and illegals and give them every single thing in the world. and they couldn't pay for it. So what did he try to do, which he got rejected? He tried to raise every single Chicago resident's property tax to pay for the mismanagement of money. They rejected him. Ultimately, they came up with a solution for a budget. Hey, Murky. Good morning, Murky. Nice to see you. Murky says Trump is done playing. This governor and mayor are inciting their own state, causing violence. Dude, there was a shooting on the Eisenhower Expressway this morning, shutting down the entire expressway. But how are they saying that Mayor Johnson's initiatives are effective? The only reason a public official would fight against law and order is because they profit off the crime or the federal funding that they've received for years. They're skimming some of it. They're taking some of it. They're profiting for profit. It's a cottage industry. They got their hands in the cookie jar and they know the gig is up. Their funding and their kickbacks and their money and their no big contracts and all that is all about the crumble. You know, there is some, you don't want to talk, you know, Chicago is known for cronyism and corruption since the mob. And literally, like, you know, a lot of times when you get this federal funding that gets distributed, they distribute it amongst their own people. No big contracts with their friends. And hardly any of that money goes to any use whatsoever to the cause. Goes into everyone's pocket. But how are you going to have a city that says we're not going to comply with ICE detainers? I mean, and then they complain when the federal government says we're going to withhold funding, public safety funding, until you comply with ICE, which I don't think is I think that's fair in a sense, right? If you comply with ICE, we'll give you the funding you need. If you work with us to enforce public safety, but if you're going to sit there and defy us, why should we give you money? Listen, I don't know it all, and I'm sure none of you know it all. We're trying to understand it all, and I am trying to understand both sides. I have an opinion, and my opinion is Chicago is a complete mess when it comes to public safety. I mean, the last couple of years, almost every holiday season, Thanksgiving and Christmas and all in between, roving gangs of people descend into downtown Chicago and do street crimes. They go in there and do looting, robbery, street takeovers. It's just not safe. You got to stop this. I mean, it was so bad at one point in Chicago that their solution was to lift the bridges to prevent people from coming in. But there's so many videos out there, viral videos that come out. I mean, they're doing robberies, store robberies in the middle of the daytime in Chicago. They roll up to a store in a stolen vehicle, jump out, fully masked, roving groups of gangs, and they plow into a business, probably not armed, but they just go in dressed in black and they start grabbing everything and looting the store and stealing. And, you know, that owner, the policies is almost like the owner can't do nothing to defend himself anyway. So the owner has to just sit there and stand there and watch it, because if the owner intervenes, the owner could be charged with something. The policies protect the criminal and give no rights to the business owners and the victims. And then these rows of people grab all this merchandise, they jump out, they run out, and they pile it all into their vehicle, and they speed off. And they're in a stolen vehicle. They go down blocks later and switch vehicles, and boom, they're gone. And Chicago police are nowhere in sight. Tell us what else is going on in Chicago. Tell us what else is going on. So we got some sort of, I think, a press conference coming up, the first of many today. Now, Pritzker is going to speak way later on today. I don't know if we're going to be around for that on this particular feed. We could definitely come back. But I want to see what happens at noon here. And I'm also just watching outside the base here. You could see a lot of people coming in earlier today. We're on military takeover, National Guard watch. Military takeover, Chicago. All eyes on Chicago. I know some of you were concerned for our safeties. I was considering going there to monitor what's going on. It's not wise to walk around or go drive around in Chicago at night, especially that Bronzeville area, which, by the way, had back-to-back mass shootings over the weekend. I mean, it's so bad in Chicago, they're literally having a mass shooting right in front of police headquarters. Of all places. It's like they don't even care about police. They don't care about the repercussions. And the police don't seem like they care to even stop this stuff. You know, they're just there. And, you know, God bless the police. Because the police have a chain of command. But it seems like police are just told to stand down only when really needed, or to clean up a crime scene or investigate a crime scene. But to, you know, policies are like, yo, just leave these people alone. We always wonder about these pop-up parties and these street takeovers when it ends up shootings and stuff. It's like police were aware that it was going on and they just fall back. And their reason for that is like, whoa, it's too dangerous for our police to get involved at the time. I've heard that over and over in many states. Like the policies, like the police know a pop-up party and a big group of people are congregating, but police are like, we can't intervene. We'll just stand back and wait to what happens, if something happens, and don't even try to stop it in the process. You know, they should be they should have police, you know, tailing these groups. And when soon as any hint of any large gathering takes place, break it up immediately before it gets out of hand. They don't do that. And they know very well it's happening. They got surveillance all over the place. They got their cameras. Chicago's probably has cameras all over the place. They know. This is going to be very, very interesting in the next few weeks. Now, I believe they have like 30 days to do this operation before it has to go through Congress. Like DC, they have about a week or two left before they extend it. Maybe they won't extend it. Maybe they move away from DC and now shift to Chicago. That might be something that might be doing too. Everybody that was in DC or the DC concept might say, okay, well, DC has been a success. We won't go past 30 days here to bypass, you know, congressional approval. And we'll see what happens. And we'll leave and then maybe come back if things get bad and go for another 30 days. When cops tell you don't stop your car at a stop sign, you know it's bad. Is that what's going on in Chicago? I never heard that concept, but man, that's scary. If cops are telling you don't stop at stop signs in neighborhoods, you know it's bad. Most communities, you'll get a ticket for not stopping. You just kind of go up to the intersection, kind of just, and boom, and go right past. Don't even stop. Don't stop at red light. Philadelphia got the thing like that too. They actually have a law in Pennsylvania now centered around, because of Philadelphia, where literally you can go to an intersection. If the light is red and you don't see nobody there, you can go. You can go. If the light's red, you can go and you won't get a ticket. If you just have to kind of make sure nobody's there. I don't know if they enforce it or not, but if they're telling you not to stop at stop signs, you know you got a problem. Taxpayer money is given to illegal and corrupt politicians as our cities and some whole states go totally under. Third world in America should never be tolerated, no matter political party. I'd like to see all of them come together, work together as a solution. We kind of seen that with Mayor Bowser. She's a Democrat in the Trump administration, Washington, D.C., though she had no choice. But she conceded at this point, is acknowledging that crime has gone down since the National Guard has been in D.C. So if it's working in D.C., why couldn't it work in Chicago? Why can't they Chicago politicians just give it a chance? Couple weeks. What do you got to lose? See what happens. They don't want that. I don't like to see people openly defying, I like to see partnerships in these agencies. I like to see people working together. It's the only way you're going to get something done. If you don't work together, this is what you're going to have, a complete mess. Ultimately, I think Chicago city officials and the governor's on the losing end here. Considering this is what many people around the country, now I don't know who you voted for, but many people around the country voted for Trump because of law and order in the border, to restore law and order in the city and the border, and in other things too. But the consensus is around this country is people are tired of crime. They just want safety. They just want their children to go out at a park with their families and be able to enjoy themselves and walk the streets without gunshots, mugged, harassed. Now, different people voted for people. We got people in the chat. Look, there's a lot of people. Democrat, Republican, Independent, all are welcome here. We're just sharing what's going on. I have my opinion. You might not agree with it, but we're just sharing what's going on and seeing and hearing from all sides here. Chicago's a mess. Let's be real, folks. Would you feel safe walking around Chicago at night? Would you like to walk around Chicago at night? Chicago's beautiful. Downtown is beautiful, but there was a murder on the Riverwalk the other day, and a body was found thrown in the water. We were there. We did a whole serial killer segment. We think there's serial killers there. Why not try something different? Break the status quo for results. Tonight will be interesting. It will be. I think tonight will be very, very well. You know what I think? I think Friday night will be interesting. I think this weekend. Usually things pop off on the Friday and Saturday nights. I think there'll be massive protests this weekend in Chicago. I do think by the end of the week, we're going to see some sort of presence in Chicago, whether it's National Guard, DHS, ICE agents, Border Patrol. I continue to look around to see if there's some sort of noon press conference with a group of individuals speaking. In the meantime, this is live outside of the base. Crazy stuff, folks. We're in interesting times, because I do think, now imagine if they do send the National Guard and it works. And ICE is on there rounding up some of the most dangerous criminals and residents support it. Imagine if this plan works, now imagine if this plan doesn't work, because the stakes couldn't be higher. If this plan doesn't we'll just go with if the plan works first. If this plan works and they actually can reduce crime or, go in there and shake things up and help keep it safe and whatnot. I mean, this could be a blueprint for every city moving forward. I've heard that Baltimore, Trump has been putting out in the last couple of days, Baltimore. I think Baltimore is in the radar next. Outside D.C., not far from D.C., hour away from D.C., Baltimore. We know about Baltimore. Baltimore's a mess. It's bad. It's crime. Go outside the harbor in Baltimore and go to those neighborhoods in Baltimore. You wouldn't dare walk around there at night. None of us. No way. It's just complete lawlessness. Imagine if this works and we see some results here, despite the politicians and the resistance from city leaders and officials and faith leaders. Just, imagine if this works. This could be the new model going forward around the country, where the National Guard goes in and helps, and they round up the criminals and they help reduce crime. The numbers, again, I don't know if we believe the numbers. Even the Trump administration says all their numbers gone down DC. I don't know if they're true or not. It seems like the mayor's acknowledging that it has been successful, but this could be a blueprint moving forward for all the cities that have problems. Now, imagine if this doesn't work. Imagine if the National Guard go in there and they get heckled and harassed and protesters there lock arms and block the streets. They were blocking the streets a little bit in Los Angeles and things like that. And it doesn't work. Then this whole plan could blow up in front of the federal government's face, and they won't go to other cities because they know they'll face resistance. So the stakes couldn't be higher. Who's going to win this battle? It's almost like a standoff. Because if they go in there and it's an epic failure, then there'll be egg all over the federal government's face, the Trump administration's face, and they might not go back to other cities. And the resistance worked. I don't know. Wouldn't you like to just be in a world where it could just be safe and you could go to any neighborhood anywhere in this country? I mean, you should feel safe everywhere. Unfortunately, it's not the reality. Some of these cities are beautiful. All of them. Or every city in the United States, it's beautiful in its sense. Downtown, the buildings, beautiful. Sometimes it's who runs the cities. Policies. Each state has their way of doing things. Most of the cities around this country have history. People like to go. Tourists, they like to go. Tourism, they like to go and check out all the arts and the food and the walk around and the parks and the beauty of what each city has to offer. They don't want to be subjected to crime. But some of these neighborhoods outside of these cities, within the cities, are just no-go zones. This big bus. I don't know what this is about. So we're still monitoring the situation here. We're going to be on this topic probably for the rest of the week, at least every day. In Southern California, a judge. See, now this could work also with Chicago and the federal courts in the Northern District of Illinois, because apparently a judge in California said the use of National Guard is illegal. Let me see if I can get that story up, particularly in an article. That might get some judge here in Illinois to say, nope, you can't bring the National Guard in to Chicago. The Guardian reports, many media outlets are reporting, a judge, Trump illegally deployed National Guard during LA ICE protests, judge rules. The judge said administration violated federal law by sending troops to help ICE agents on immigration raids. A judge has ruled the Trump administration's use of National Guard troops during the Southern California immigration enforcement protest was illegal. A judge by the name of Charles Breyer, they said he was appointed by the Bill Clinton, ruled Tuesday, that Donald Trump's administration violated federal law by sending troops to join federal agents on immigration raids. The judge did not require the remaining troops to withdraw, however. Breyer, who was appointed to the federal bench by former Democratic President Bill Clinton, ruled that the deployment violated an 1878 law that generally bars federal troops from participating in civilian law enforcement. This comes after Trump has discussed further National Guard deployments in Chicago. And what's going on in Washington, D.C. Now, that would be a federal court split per se, because that's the Ninth Circuit, California. This would be the Seventh Circuit. D.C. has their own circuit. Could be a circuit split. Ultimately, somebody will appeal, might go up to the Federal Appeals Court, eventually up to the U.S. Supreme Court. This issue might even hit the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court would ultimately rule, and then other circuits would have no choice. A lot of times when things happen, against the Trump administration, that's not favorable. Usually it comes out in the Ninth Circuit. California, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, Ninth Circuit. I think this was a San Francisco judge. San Francisco judge. So here we are. What do you think? National Guard takeover? Jimbaramba. The only way to avoid attention in Chicago is to appear crazier and more disheveled than anyone else. Hey, let me tell you something, Jim Baramba. That actually works. If you want a way to be safe and you're in a dangerous situation, you're walking the streets, just act irrational yourself. If you want to get out of a situation, if you're walking somewhere, no, seriously, I think that philosophy works. I've discussed that with Magnolia before. If you want to get out of a dangerous situation, if you're on the streets, my advice would be, if you see people eyeing you or about to prey on you, act crazy yourself. Sit there and talk to yourself and, flail your arms around, act even more crazy and talk to yourself, or pick up a phone and pretend you're screaming in the phone. I want my money. I'm coming there now. Something. I'm serious. And I think they'll leave you alone. It's a way to get out of the situation, because nobody wants to go up on somebody that's crazy like that. Act like you're nuts. I think that philosophy works, and I've done it myself. Christy Miller, thank you for the comment. Christy Miller says, I voted for Trump, and this is not okay. They will not stop here. Peppers, take note. Revolutionist Pats, take note. Thank you for the comment. Got FedEx going in there. Yeah, it will be very interesting, though. You know, some people that voted for Trump don't support this. I've personally seen people that voted for Trump, and then eventually they've been seeing the immigration rates, and they're not with it. They think it's too extreme. They're like, I didn't necessarily vote for this, and they're not supportive. Again, we're not a politics channel at all, so we're not promoting anybody. We are sharing, you know, what's going on in the world. I have my opinion on law. I'm in support of law and order, regardless of who's president. You show me some law and order and keep communities safe and round up criminals, I'm for it. I don't care who's in power. I'm for it. If you actually take the initiative to lock criminals up, prosecute them, don't give people slap on the wrist, keeping communities safe, hey, I'm with it. Me. I'm with it. I definitely think we have an immigration problem. We've been down to the border. We've seen it. It's not the way. You can't just walk over across the Rio Grande and say, I'm here and be able to stay. You don't know who's who. We literally looked at potential terrorists that crossed through there, came from foreign countries. Seen them. Middle-aged fighting men that had fraudulent documents that we personally seen cross over the border and shred their documents and throw them down. You don't know who they are. You don't know where they come from. You don't know if they were sent over by other crazy rogue foreign terrorist countries. You don't know if they're criminals from other countries evading. And it's all cartel ring. These people didn't travel thousands of miles through the treacherous to get to the United States. No, they paid to be dropped off at the border for only them to walk across the border. Plus, how's it fair for everyone else that has to go through the legal process to come in? It's a mess. And I'm personally in support of a border on any country being, secure. You don't have a country if you don't have a secure border. Again, I don't care who's president. If they have that philosophy, hey, I'm with it. Secure the border. Stop crime. Tackle homelessness. Audit the money. If you're going to create federal funding for all these communities to tackle this, that, and the other, you need to find them. You need to track the money and find out how the money's being used. Because most of the time, the money's being misused, and the money's not being used for that purpose. Or the people running that operation are the ones collecting the money, and no results. I also believe that, over the years, they've destroyed communities with crazy mass incarceration policy, particularly in federal prison, when they were rounding people up for drugs, and not necessarily drug dealers themselves, just people that caught with drugs get crazy 20, 30 years. I think it ripped parents and families apart, particularly in these inner cities, where most of these kids grow up fatherless. It was like a totally backwards policies, man. Yeah, I'm in support of drug dealers being incarcerated for life. Drug dealers that poison the community and sell drugs. Drug users going to prison, though, for 20, 30 years because they had drugs, only because there's federal sentencing guidelines that mandate people going to prison just because they possess drugs? No, it's crazy. People spending decades in prison for marijuana. think everything needs to be shaped and reformed. But yeah, keep a community safe. And man, that's, hey, I can't see how anyone could be against keeping community safe. Like, I found something crazy about the situation up in Minneapolis with that church shooting, that Annunciation with the shooter. I mean, they were out there protesting for gun control, and I don't get it. I just don't. I don't get it. It seems like the philosophy is like gun control, but there's other root issues besides the gun control aspect. I am 100% agree that crazy people and certain people shouldn't have access to guns. However, you shouldn't penalize responsible gun owners out there and ban guns in general. I think guns and responsible gun owners is a deterrent and can stop crime. Oh, they got a train station up there. But it's so complex because everyone has an opinion on the matter, just like everyone in the chat here. So many different opinions and perspectives. Yeah, J.B. Pritzker. I looked him up. I did some deep dives on him, man. I'm sure some of you are probably aware, but his family owns Hyatt Hotels. He was actually in a business partnership with Donald Trump years back at the Commodore Hotel that was eventually bought to a Hyatt, and then I believe they were trying to tear it down. Pritzker and Donald Trump go back. So I do think this is a personal beef between both of them, between Pritzker and Trump. But he's in the hotel industry. Pritzker's actually richer than Trump, somebody said in the chat. I think I agree with that. Trump's like worth $1 billion or $2 billion. Pritzker's like worth $4 billion. The Pritzker family got a lot of money. How did Pritzker even get in office? Got in office in 2019. Used to serve for the House of Representatives in Illinois' 9th Congressional District. He served as the Illinois Human Rights Commission head chairman from 2006 to 2003 to 2006 under Blagojevich. You know, Blagojevich. He was calling out Pritzker, by the way. By the way, Blagojevich, I think, is going to be running for governor again, by the way. Man who went to federal prison, got pardoned. Blagojevich, I think he's going to run for governor again. Pocket Aces says billionaires shouldn't be put in office. Some of these politicians, even with the congressional people or senators or whatnot, they come in with not much money, and then suddenly while they're in office, they accumulate millions and millions and millions and millions and millions in wealth. Who should be put in office, though? If you're qualified and you got billions, why not, though? If you were a successful person and, your track record has been running businesses, I mean, I guess that philosophy is, hey, works for me. I can make it work for everyone or work for select few. My point is, though, that is, Pritzker, he's worth billions himself. His estimated, according to 2025 Forbes, J.B. Pritzker is worth $3.9 billion. By the way, his father's name is Donald, Pritzker's dad, and he was president of Hyatt Hotels. And he was raised in California. So Pritzker comes from a family of billions. I think one of their family members died, and they eventually split up the wealth. All right, so we got National Guard takeover here. I'm waiting to see something here, but I don't know. National Guard coming or not? That's the whole talk. We're going to wait and see here a little bit. Keep the conversation going. We're going to hear from Pritzker later on today. Oh, they're actually reporting that a tow truck driver was shot on the southwest side of Chicago overnight. Tow truck driver. Some have identified this as a federal crackdown. Immigration crackdown. Depends on what media outlet you listen to. I like to watch all perspectives. Fox News reports a couple hours ago, Chicago residents beg for more help as crime wreaks havoc on the neighborhoods. Chicago locals describe worsening violence as the Trump administration floats sending National Guard troops. Chicago residents are calling for more police as crime continues to plague the Windy City, with the Trump administration considering sending the National Guard. I was going to say that it wasn't really as bad as it is today. When I was growing up back in the... What do I hear there?
We just every day. You know,
Thought I heard something there in the background. But basically, they're saying that it wasn't bad back in the day. They're interviewing residents. They're saying back in the day, it wasn't as bad as it was today. Local residents are saying we need about 10,000 police. So, residents. Now, I'd like to get a news report where they interview actually residents that are for this and residents that are against this. Another report. Our leaders abandoned Chicago. It's time to call the Guard. The south side of Chicago is a war zone. In 2023, the city recorded 617 homicides and more than 2,000 shootings, with neighborhoods like Inglewood and Woodlawn hit the hardest. But Pritzker says, as Donald Trump attempts to create chaos that distracts from his problems, we'll call it out for what it is. Crime rates are improving, according to Pritzker. Homicides are down more than 30% in Chicago the last year alone. He added that Trump's approach was a distraction from real issues. A lot of finger pointing. ABC7, Chicago. Chicago braces for potential National Guard deployment as Trump points out to violent weekend. Tuesday, military veterans and attorneys rallied at Federal Plaza. They're calling on Governor Pritzker to protect National Guard troops and support military members. Let me see if I can find that. It's supposed to be up at a location right now. Federal Plaza. But here you are in front of the Great Lakes Naval Base. We got a clip. I got something here I'm going to put up in the pipeline here. Get this up in a few. Apparently, down there at Federal Plaza, their Illinois Guard veterans rally against potential Chicago deployment. I mean, there's a lot of activity going in and out of the naval base. I just don't know if this is normal, standard, or if this is more people coming in reporting for duty.
There is a press conference taking place right now from veterans of National Guard's troops. Why? Because if you've been paying attention, President Donald Trump has been signaling that he would like to bring in National Guardsmen like he has in D.C. to Illinois, mainly Chicago. Okay. And so far, the governor of Illinois, the mayor of Chicago, they have pushed back on the notion, even after a violent weekend in Chicago in which there were many people who were shot and some who died over the weekend as well. So we want to listen in to see what these individuals are saying here in Chicago. I just wanted to give a little bit of context before we just took the shot.
To deploy any military troops or National Guard units here in Chicago. There's absolutely no basis whatsoever. As Governor Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson have forcefully expressed, such a deployment of troops is unnecessary, unconstitutional, illegal, and immoral. A bedrock principle embodied in the U.S. Constitution and U.S. law prohibits federal armed forces, including federalized National Guard units, from engaging in civilian law enforcement activities. That means policing. That means arrest, searches, detentions. Specifically, the Posse Comitatus Act, a federal law, prohibits the military and other armed forces from engaging in actions that exert compulsory powers over civilians. There are very limited circumstances in which President Trump can invoke and federalize the National Guard units over a governor's consent. And here our governor absolutely is not consenting. Those circumstances embodied in the Insurrection Act, a federal law, do not exist here. We are not witnessing, we are not experiencing any insurrections, rebellions, or domestic violence that prevents the enforcement or execution of laws here in the city of Chicago or the state of Illinois. There is no justification for the invocation of the Insurrection Act. The other way that President Trump could invoke the National Guard is to use the statute 10 U.S.C. 12406, and that is used to repel an invasion or rebellion that prevents the execution of the law. This was the provision that President Trump and his administration used to invoke California's National Guard. As you may know, this morning, District Court Judge Charles Breyer of the Northern District of California found that the use of troops in California violated the Posse Comitatus Act. The court also enjoined Secretary of Defense and the Department of Defense from deploying, ordering, instructing, training, or using the National Guard currently deployed in California and any military troops to execute the laws, including but not limited to engaging in arrests, apprehensions, searches, seizures, security patrols, traffic control, crowd control, riot control, evidence collection, interrogation, or acting as informants. The decision by the federal court in California strongly corroborates what Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson have said, which is the deployment of National Guard units here in Chicago is illegal, unwarranted, and unconstitutional. We should not be putting our military troops and our National Guard units in this position. They should not be put in a position where they are enforcing illegal orders that are against our civilian population. That is not what is supposed to happen here in the United States. It's a bedrock principle of constitutional law. With that, I sincerely hope that this does not occur and that we do not put our military troops and our National Guard units in this unconscionable position. Thank you.
Okay, and now I'm going to ask all of our speakers to come up, answer your questions. One thing that come on up here, everyone, please. And you can shoot questions to whomever you want. Just one word to Governor Pritzker. File all the lawsuits that you want. The fact is, this president has shown over and over again he treats them like lousy pieces of paper. My friends behind me here have just outlined very concrete steps that Governor Pritzker can and must take right now. Lawsuits are pieces of paper to this clown in the White House. We need firmer action out of you, Governor Pritzker. With that, we'll take your questions.
I have a question for Daniel.
Sorry. Go for it, Daniel.
Yep. You asked for support from Governor Pritzker. What specifically do you mean? Are you talking about financial support for the lawsuits or lawsuit support? What are you talking about?
First, to make clear, as Commander-in-Chief, speaking directly to those who are under his command, not to report if he is declaring these orders illegal. So that is one more thing specifically in word. Indeed, to then support with the massive legal team that he has as governor to support the individuals that do then refuse the orders, to do more than file a lawsuit in federal court, to actually support the individuals who comprise the Guard, making legal resources available to them, supporting the networks that are doing that work in connection with them.
Q&A.
Okay, so you're listening to them. They are very passionate in their stance when it comes to the possibilities of troops being brought into Chicago, into Illinois. It is very important to note that breaking news that came in just under 20 minutes or so, that a district judge has ruled now that the use of federal troops in Los Angeles is unlawful. And this came in again today. This is after the Trump administration used, if you remember back several weeks ago now, to have federal troops there in Los Angeles to conduct law enforcement operations. That federal judge ruling today that that was not lawful. That U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer issued an order prohibiting troops from engaging in security patrols, riot control, arrest, searches, and crowd control. Now, here's the thing. The order does not take effect until September 12th to allow the Trump administration time to appeal. The judge gave the reasoning, said that the use of federal troops effectively created a, quote, national police force with the president as its chief and therefore violated law. So it's going to be interesting. The particular law in which the judge references here, I'm looking at it, goes back to 1878, which limits the military from being involved in civilian law enforcement unless Congress approves it or under circumstances, quote, expressly authorized by the Constitution. So that's going to be very interesting how things move forward based upon that ruling. Again, that is for Los Angeles. I do not believe that as I adjust this, I do not believe that can be used in the context of D.C. because, Sarah, if you remember, there was the ruling that took place maybe 2 or so months ago that limited those district judges to particular cases within the regions in which they were ruling on. So I do believe that this focuses in on Los Angeles. So the context behind it, though, you have what is taking place in D.C., where you just had the mayor of D.C. say that there are some crime statistics that are significantly down since the troops went into D.C. Mainly, I'm thinking about car break-ins. I believe the number was 63-something% since they've been there. So there's the argument now, is it working? What do you do beyond this? If you're in other cities like in Baltimore or Chicago or L.A., and the president has put out that he is eyeing and wanting to do the same thing in D.C. there. We're hearing the pushback for those leaders in those communities. We'll see what happens now that this ruling has been put in place if other cities, other governors try to push for a similar kind of decision in their communities. Again, this ruling, though, this order does not take effect until September 12th because the judge wants to give the Trump administration time to appeal.
Thoughts? It's interesting. They brought somebody from the Illinois National Guard there, a group of people from the Illinois National Guard to stand out there at Federal Plaza calling for against National Guard deployment, telling Pritzker to do more and calling out the President of the United States. We are live outside the Great Lakes Naval Base as we continue to monitor the situation and give you all the reports that are coming out of Chicago. I think the whole nation's going to be watching Chicago in the next week. All eyes on Chicago, for sure. Now, throughout the day here, it looks like it's been active. People coming in and out. But it is going to get very, very interesting. I see a red comment here. Lello. Very grateful for that. Thank you very much, Lello. Like Jello, Lello. JLR Magnolia, thank you for providing public participation of the voice of reason and logic with commitment and passion. Thank you. Again, all people are welcome with different opinions here. Like, we're not taking one, like, I have my opinion, but I want to hear all of yours. And this is a conversation that needs to talk about, because I do think that this is going to happen in other cities down the line. I really do. And again, people might be on the fence with this. People might be in support. People not support. They want to learn more. We're trying to get all the reports and what the media outlets now. I do think that there are certain media outlets are putting out certain, clips regarding the issue. And I see like they are on one side of the issue.
No
We've
federal
covered Chicago
troops in the city of Chicago. No militarized force in the city of Chicago. We're going to defend our democracy in the city of Chicago. Are you prepared to defend this land? If this president decides to continue to break this Constitution, it's going to be the labor movement that stitches it back together.
Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson rallying against President Trump's offer to deploy federal troops to help the city fight crime. Now, this despite a violent holiday weekend. At least 7 people were shot and killed and dozens more wounded. Kata Truss lives in Chicago. She is the director of the Community Roundtable and joins us now. Great to have you back on the show. I want to read to you what's in Mayor Johnson's executive order. He says the city will pursue all available legal and legislative avenues to counter coordinated efforts from the federal government that violate the rights of the city and its residents. You're closer to the people than we are, and we'd love to hear what you think about all of this that's going on, and especially the very tragic news from over the weekend.
Well, first of all, this has been a very violent weekend in the city of Chicago. As a matter of fact, the last several weekends in Chicago have been very violent. And so when Mayor Johnson stands there and talks about taking over the city and not letting troops come in, is as opposed to what? As opposed to the high crime that is here, as opposed to the murders and the violence that's going on, as opposed to businesses being afraid to open their doors because they're constantly being robbed. What's the point in this? The fact of the matter is this. Mayor Johnson has a dismal approval rating. And so going against President Trump probably in his mind seems like the right thing to do. He has never listened to the people and what we really want since he's been in office. And what is really happening here is I feel that the mayor is probably deflecting. He's deflecting from the fact that he mismanaged the city's money by supporting the migrant crisis. And he asked the Board of Education to take out a junk loan for the city to cover costs. That's basically what the loan is for. So now that the Board of Education has refused, most of the measures that he's really tried to push in this city have been turned down because they've been things that have not been beneficial to the people here. So of course he's going to go against whatever measures President Trump puts in place.
Right. So he would use politics and a fight with Trump in order to help his own standing, is what I hear you say. I want you to listen to some of these Chicago business owners to talk about what they're going through.
The city's not safe, for the mayor and the governor to go on TV and use us as statics, as numbers. I mean, we're human beings. We're talking about real time. We have to hire extra security, private security on the street. You have to make sure that we advise all our patrons when they go home and check the Uber. People can't even walk their dogs. I mean, this is to believe that the city is safe the way they made it sound in the press conference. It is wrong.
Kata, if Brandon Johnson were to change his mind today and take President Trump up on the offer, get some results like they're seeing in Washington, D.C., do you think that his approval would actually be harmed in the city?
Absolutely not. It may help him, considering the fact that his approval rating is at a dismal 1 digit. It might be something that can help him. But the fact of the matter is, it really doesn't matter about what Brandon Johnson says. It doesn't matter about his politics. What matters is the people. And the people here in Chicago don't feel safe. The people here in Chicago want the help that President Trump is trying to send here. So regardless of what the mayor says, we want the help.
Kata, thank you for being here. I think that there could be, perhaps news about this in the next week or so, maybe sooner. And we'd love to have you back. You're a great guest for us to have. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we take you back to Great Lakes Naval Base, DHL, different shipping companies going in there. Got to go through the front gate to get there. Apparently, the people that have arrived for duty could be DHS agents, ICE agents, Border Patrol. Could be arriving here today, tomorrow, the next day. We also have Pritzker going to speak later on today. Now, some of these white vans, sometimes that go in, could be full with troops. We don't know if the National Guard's coming. We don't know if the military's coming. We don't even know if they deploy the National Guard, if it will be the Illinois National Guard. Could be another state's National Guard. Sleuthy TV says it's 6%. Mayor's approval rating. Literally under 10. I heard 9. 6% is low. How can you even be in office and not be like recalled or gone when your percentage is less than 10%? That's his approval rating. Brandon Johnson is defending his worst mayor in America title. People say that he mismanaged the money. What did he say? He had to take out some junk bonds to pay for his migrant madness mismanagement. Yeah, it's bad. It appears, unless it's good. I mean, unless people feel like it's good. Unless people feel like it's good. This is a forum to be able to share your thoughts on the matter. Sky News is apparently going up any minute now. But this might, they have a Illinois governor speaks. That's not going to be for a while, though. I think it's 4 their time. So that's 3 hours from now. We're waiting for to find out if any additional reports come out in Chicago, and also monitoring the situation. Now, for sure, we're going to stay with this story each and every day. I incited a barbecue yesterday. Hey, I ate barbecue. Me and Magnolia ate barbecue yesterday. Seriously. Sonny's Barbecue. Happy Labor Day. We ate Sonny's Barbecue yesterday. It was delicious. I even took a pic. Let me see if I got it. No, seriously. I ate Sonny's Barbecue yesterday. Look. See? Sonny's Barbecue. We love ourselves some Sonny's Barbecue. Best barbecue out there. Pulled pork, chicken. It was delish. Labor Day. Baked beans. The bread. Coleslaw. Egg rolls. Is this a plan for the federal government to stop Chicago corruption once and for all? Thoughts on Mayor Johnson? LOL, 6% approval rating, yet if they had an election tomorrow, I guaranteed he would win, Raymond Cheek says. Imagine that. Imagine having a so low approval rating, yet if there was an election, you somehow win in Chicago. Why? Why? Chicago will always be corrupt, Paul says. This is live. I don't know if we expected like National Guard troop vehicles to be rolling in there, and it very well could be possible. The DOD has taken over this base here for specific immigration blitz crackdown. I continue to scour the net while we're talking here, find out what else exactly is going on with this topic. In Chicago. Those numbers are crazy. Some are saying 47 shot. I heard 54. WGN News is now putting out 58 were 58 were shot. I hear 7 dead, 8 dead, 9 dead. The whole point is it's high, and this is unacceptable. I'm not from Chicago, but I mean, the consensus is most business owners and residents just do not feel safe. don't feel safe in Chicago anymore. Got to do something to a solution here. You can't just go with the, I mean, if you just, oh, nothing to see here, everything's fine, we'll keep doing what we're doing. Well, what exactly are you doing out there in making a difference? What are people doing? Matter of fact, the mayor's speaking right now of Chicago, speaking at this opening of the 211 Metro Chicago call center. Grand opening, some press conference. I'm watching it now. I'm monitoring to see if he says anything about the pending National Guard, or at the very least, DHS coming to Chicago. Every day they're giving press conferences on this matter somewhere. One side is. See if there's any additional reports coming out. Media is reporting this was the most violent Labor Day weekend ever in Chicago. See, this is interesting too. Coincidentally, as you see, this is what I find interesting too, and this is the Chicago Sun-Times reports this. California judge nods to Chicago as he rules against Trump's use of the National Guard there. So it's almost like this California judge, this federal judge in San Francisco, Charles Breyer, kind of like wink, wink to Chicago, and magically comes up with this ruling right before National Guard's going to go into Chicago by saying, oh, you can't use National Guard troops. It's unconstitutional. It's almost like everyone is working hand in hand here.
This is Chicago's very own WGN Midday News.
Midday
A
News.
violent Labor Day weekend in Chicago is stoking more speculation of an impending federal troop deployment. Close to 60 people were shot. A number of those shootings were deadly. Hello again, everyone. I'm Patrick Elwood.
And I'm Dina Bair. Thank you for joining us. WGN's Eric Rung is live at police headquarters with the very latest on this rough weekend. Eric?
Well, good morning. According to Chicago police, there were at least 37 shooting incidences over the holiday weekend, with 8 people being killed. In Pilsen, a memorial at Wolcott and West 17th grows.
He's like such a good dude and just completely opposite of, violence in any way.
A fixture in the Pilsen neighborhood known as Pepe was shot and killed when an explosion of gunfire erupted around 1:30 Sunday morning. The gunshots were captured on a doorbell camera. 2 others were also hurt in the shooting but expected to survive. Several people could be seen running from the area Pepe was shot.
I'm very upset, angry, because that should have never happened to Pepe. He didn't bother anybody.
So far, police say 58 people were shot over the weekend, with 8 people being killed. Last year, 24 were shot and 7 killed. In 2023, 37 people were shot and 7 killed. Several of this holiday weekend shootings included numerous victims. In Ellis Park, 5 people were shot. In Humboldt Park, 4 wounded. And another 7 in a shooting in Bronzeville.
This violence you don't have to be involved in it. Like, it can just happen to anybody, someone standing on the corner minding their own business.
2 more people were shot early this morning, and that is according to the Chicago Police Department. They are expected to survive. Also, Chicago police have not made any arrests. We are live at CPD headquarters. I'm Eric Rung, WGN.
There you go. See what I'm saying? That's what people in the neighborhoods are subjected to. A barrage of gunfire. Pop, 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 pop. But the governor Says no problem. We don't need help. We don't need the federal government. Though they say, hey, we'll take more FBI agents and ATF agents. But troops, looks like it's getting pretty busy out here in front of the Great Lakes Naval Base. Live look. I think they'll probably be stationed out here every day for the next week. Chicago sets weekend record for violence. Anyone think that's crazy though? And the coincidence or the timing here, as there has been talks about the National Guard going in at the same time, the exact same time the talks about National Guard going in, and the governor and Brandon Johnson saying no problems. Chicago sets a record for their most violent weekend ever, just at the right time. That couldn't have been bad. That's not favorable for Pritzker and Johnson, you think? I mean, if there was no shootings this weekend at all, and it was like, that would have been favorable for the mayor and Pritzker in this sense. You know, if there was no shootings, they said, why do you need to come in here? There's no shootings. It's safe. But at the very same time, all this is happening, Chicago has the worst shootings, violence weekend on record. Whoa, we have they just posted, NBC Chicago just posted an exclusive interview with Pritzker. I'm going to get this in the pipeline here. They're walking around with Pritzker. They just posted it a few minutes ago. He talks about the National Guard, ICE in Chicago, his weight loss. He talks about it all. An exclusive. We'll get this up in the pipeline, and we'll see what this is and review it. NBC Chicago walks with Pritzker along the waterfront in Chicago. Unbelievable. All eyes on Chicago. Oh, by the way, Magnolia put up there, and that's another thing to hone in on too. All these shootings, yet no arrests. Not a single shooter has been arrested. So you got all these people being shot, gunfire, multiple mass shootings in Bronzeville, and no arrests. None. So these killers are out on the street. Still creating havoc, wrecking havoc, could kill again. Unbelievable. No arrest. I saw that yesterday. I was like, where are the arrests? At least share some mugshots of somebody. Nothing. Where are the detectives? Where are the investigators? Where's the police? Why aren't they arresting people? Usually in shootings like this, somebody's getting arrested quickly. None. That means all 58 victims. No accountability right now.
I mean, how about walking? Why?
This is new.
You know, I've been doing it on machines indoors really since last fall, really. Or, you know, maybe December. And so, you know, when the weather got great, I have to say walking outside is great for your mental health. Yeah. So it just gives me a real break from, you know, the hurly-burly challenges of everyday life. So I love it, and I do it every day.
Your day and
yeah, and when the weather's bad, obviously, you know, I try to find a treadmill somewhere. So, hey, good morning.
And people are noticing. You've obviously lost weight.
I guess so. I guess people are noticing, but that's, I had not anticipated that people would pay attention.
At the same time, when you're in the public eye, people want to know. And I don't want to be too rude to you, but at the same, are you taking also one of the drugs to help lose some weight?
I think I'm not going to answer that question, partly because I think there are a lot of people who are on those GLP-1s.
Yeah.
And it's kind of none of anybody's business. Sometimes people are doing it because they have a health problem, like a genuine medical problem, diabetes or something else.
Yeah.
And those are amazing drugs. I mean, I've read a lot. They're good for your heart health. They're good for your diabetes. And it's, as you know, we're funding that at the state level for state employees because people who are losing weight, people who are getting off their diabetes medication, that's cheaper for the state, not to mention healthier for the people who work for us. So
there will be those, by not answering, that are going to assume that yes, you are.
I don't care. I mean, I think that anybody doing anything that's good for their health, that's a positive thing. And this is good for my health. I have kids I want to be around for a long time. So I think being healthier is a very positive thing. And I have fought my being overweight my whole life. My weight has been a challenge. I think there are probably a lot of other people who have that issue. And so, if I can get in a groove where I'm eating right and I'm exercising, that can be nothing but good.
And don't you feel good about it?
I do. And actually it makes me, literally, I feel good, feel good. It's not like, oh, hey, I'm doing a good thing and therefore I feel good about it. I'm able to do more things. I'm excited to be out here. I mean, you can't help but look at the sun coming up over there. You can't help but just love spending time outside and and getting some real heart healthy exercise.
And your own dad had passed away early.
Yeah.
That's got to be a little bit of a worry on your mind.
Yeah, I think my whole life I've been aware that being overweight, that my father having died at age 39 of a heart attack, and it's something that whenever I go to the doctor, it's part of my record, and they're always advising me, like, here are things that you need to be concerned about, and that you're at a higher risk, let's say, because you have a family member who died of a heart attack young. So that does drive me. I mean, that's, again, my kids are amazing. My wife is amazing. I'd like to not give them up,
Any doctor recommendation for you to do this? I mean, I guess the question too is, why now?
No, just I think we all get to a point where those of us who struggle with our weight all the time, I think we find a groove sometimes where you can really focus on what's best for your health, and I'm running with it, literally.
And obviously, if you're feeling good and there's a lot of crises going on, this is going to be beneficial to you as a leader.
I think so. And I just, there are a lot of challenges. I think people, all of us who went through COVID, that era, and understood all of the things that were weighing on us, and especially those of us who had to make decisions about how to keep everybody safe and alive, I think understand that we are once again in a very trying period, that being healthy and trying to make sure you just have all of your energy that you can, and keeping a good spirit about it. Those are all things that I think about. So yeah, I'm pleased to be healthier than I was, and I've obviously got more work to do, and I'm still doing it.
I think it's an inspiration to many. There's no one, I don't know anyone that says, man, I wish I felt better. I didn't. They working out. It's hard. It's much harder as you get older. So
it is, and I think one of the great things is just being able to get out really early. There aren't a lot of people out here. It's a little easier for the.
Careful, Jeff.
Oh yeah, a little easier for the state troopers.
Yeah.
And easier for me just to actually, do a workout.
Yeah.
Than it is.
I bet you've been getting some encouragement though. If people walking by, we've got.
People are very kind, really, and I think they're just sometimes excited to see somebody that they that they like, or somebody that they have seen on TV. And I bet you get that all the time too.
Well, it depends. Whether they like or not is a question.
Well, yes, not everybody likes everything.
Yeah.
So
tell me about how you're mentally also getting ready for this week, and what are you anticipating?
Well, look, Donald Trump has obviously has Chicago on his mind seemingly every day now. And they are clearly going to send ICE officials and officers to the neighborhoods. That's not going to be good for anybody. I think if they want to actually do something that's helpful, they should help us arrest violent criminals. That's what we'd like. And that can be done with folks who are in the business of doing that. But ICE officials it's their job to manage enforcement of immigration laws. I hope that if they come here, that they will not act as they did in Los Angeles, which was provocative. But unfortunately, the guy who is leading that effort here in Chicago is the same one that led the effort in Los Angeles. So I'm not optimistic.
And that you've been already told that?
Yes.
What about the National Guard? Because I think that amps up the concern, the anxiety, and perhaps the protest to see camouflage.
No, that's a whole different. Yeah, but you got to differentiate between, civilian law enforcement and National Guard or troops.
Right.
That is very, very different. We don't see troops on the streets of cities unless there is truly an emergency. Sometimes a riot has taken place. I've talked to other governors when they've had to call out their National Guard. When there's a riot, we had challenges in 2020. I called out the National Guard. But that is the prerogative of a governor. And people on the ground advise about whether or not, I'm talking about law enforcement, mayors, advise about whether or not they need help. And then we call out the Guard based upon their request. And I did that a couple of times. So I'm not unfamiliar, but the President of the United States has absolutely no idea what's going on the ground. He has no idea that crime has gone way down in the city of Chicago. Every crime, of course, is a tragedy, and we need to fight every single one of them. And, until we're rid of all crime, which I don't think we'll ever be, we're always going to need more law enforcement. We're always going to need more crime prevention. But the president is literally taking money away from crime prevention. I'm talking about almost $1 billion being taken away from crime prevention and hundreds of millions here in the city of Chicago. Things that are working, things that have been in place for some time. And it's a shame what the president is doing.
You're going to hear people, especially this past weekend, 54 shot, 7 dead.
Yeah.
They're going to say the city's not safe. Would you ask your friends to ride the L after midnight or after, 9 o'clock at night even to come down to the city from O'Hare?
Look, big cities have crime. There's no doubt about it. But let's just pay attention to what President Trump is doing targeting Chicago. He's overlooking red states that have much higher crime rates. Much higher. Don't stop here.
Obviously, a difficult crime weekend. There will be those who say, how do you say no to help?
I haven't said no to help. I would love civilian law enforcement help. FBI agents, ATF agents, people who help us pick up the bad guys, put them in prison. People will help us take guns off the street or fight gangs. Those are all things, by the way, that we do now, but I'd love more help. But troops on the ground, that doesn't work. It's a very temporary solution that will, when the troops go away, crime will return. So I'm very concerned about the president thinking that troops on the ground somehow is okay. It's un-American. It's anti-American. Literally putting troops into American cities, attacking the people of Chicago who don't want him here.
When's the last time you spoke to Trump or anyone on his staff?
They haven't called me at all about any of this. Now, we did receive a call over the weekend by someone in ICE letting us know that they will begin operations here sometime in the coming week. But other than that literally after 2 weeks of all this talk about troops on the ground, that's the first time we've heard from the federal government on this.
Did they give you a number?
They did not.
How do you know if the National Guard, can the National Guard in Illinois be called when you haven't called them?
Look, they can be federalized, but the purposes only can be, according to the law, for them to be sent overseas to protect us, which our National Guard does all the time. Or if there's an emergency, truly an emergency on the ground, an insurrection on the ground. Posse Comitatus is an act that was passed in the 1800s that prohibits the federal government from sending troops into American cities. The president is ignoring that law, and then he's making up reasons why it's okay that he could send troops. So I'm very deeply concerned that he's going to have ICE come here and cause the same mayhem that they caused in Los Angeles so that he can say, oh, look, there's mayhem on the ground, I'm going to have to call in National Guard. The other thing you should take note of is he doesn't have to call the Illinois National Guard. He can call National Guard from another state. Now imagine that, another state's National Guard invading the city of Chicago. Neither one, Illinois or from another state, is acceptable, and it is illegal.
What about those who are still, there are going to be those who are welcoming it, that you've seen some.
Yeah, but these are, look, I understand, and by the way, I understand anything that we can do to reduce crime in the city is something that all of us want to consider. But the one thing we shouldn't do is have American troops on American city streets. Again, send me more ATF agents, send me more FBI agents, send the money that you've taken away, Donald Trump, from community violence intervention programs. It's working on the streets of Chicago, but murder is down 50% over the last 4 years.
Are you worried about protests? Could it get ugly?
The people of Chicago know how to protest peacefully, but sure, I mean, if ICE wants to inflame people, good morning, wants to inflame people, they can do that. I mean, you saw that happen in Los Angeles. And so I have no doubt that's possible.
What about the faith community today? I believe there's a large ad in the Sun-Times. I haven't quite seen it yet since we're up so early, but do you believe the faith community will play a role in trying to advise people of how to react to this? Because it's going to be sort of a gut punch to many people.
Listen, we don't know if the National Guard is coming or not coming. We know ICE is coming, and ICE has the responsibility to enforce immigration laws. They shouldn't do it the way they were doing it in Los Angeles, but they have that responsibility, and they should do it in the proper way, not the way Tom Homan is having them do it or Kristi Noem. But ICE is a civilian law enforcement agency. What they should not do, what they cannot do legally, is send troops in, and that is what I'm concerned about, and that, I think, is the thing that will inflame terrible passions on the ground, because people don't want this. This is undemocratic, little d democratic. It is truly an anathema to everything that we believe.
What about the DC mayor ended up saying, hey, crime is better, thank you?
All due respect, she's doing that so that he will pull those troops out. And she's saying, look at all the good you did. Great, thanks very much. Can you get rid of the troops? So we don't want them here in the first place. He has federal authority over Washington, D.C. That is in the Constitution. So the president and Congress have authority over that piece of land. We have sovereignty in this state. The 10th Amendment says that states have sovereignty, that we make our own laws, that we protect our own, and that we will fight crime on the ground with police.
How are you coordinating with Mayor Johnson? Are you speaking with him often?
Yeah, I would say every few days we're talking to one another. Staffs are on the phone with one another fairly regularly. And I think we, share in common the understanding that troops would be a terrible thing for the city of Chicago.
All right, so while you got troops, you got that crisis. You're
Yes.
out here walking. You're also on the national circuit. How are you managing all of those priorities? Some are wondering, are you a part-time gov now that you also have a national perspective?
My wife jokes, when people ask her, well, what does he do in his free time? And she says he works. And that's true. I love the work, and I work very hard. I am full-time governor of this state. I know you like to emphasize whenever I leave the state and go give a speech somewhere, but that is literally for a few hours, possibly a day now, here and there. But literally, we have so many challenges we're trying to overcome in the city and in the state that it is my job to do that, and I've been doing it all along. I think you saw I was in Southern Illinois just a couple of days ago in 3 different places. We are expanding the economy of Southern Illinois as we are across the state. And so I'm doing the things that you normally do as governor. And occasionally I get invited to speak nationally, and happy to do that.
Like more than occasionally. But also we got, whoops, this is blocking our view, but we got the Chicago Bears over here. What about that? Is that on a priority list?
I'm excited for the Chicago Bears to start the new season. But I have to say that, it's a wealthy family that owns a very highly valued team. They even showed the other day that they could sell part of the team at an $8.5 billion valuation. We saw that the Ricketts expanded Wrigley Field. They didn't take any state funding for any of that or city funding. So I would just say that, obviously we want to help businesses in the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois. And we do that all the time. I do that all the time. It's something I'm deeply focused on. But the idea that we're going to give them $2 billion to build a new stadium, that's not going to happen. I think they understand that. But we'll help them. I mean, infrastructure is something that we always help with. Would love to have them stay in the city of Chicago. It's what I would prefer. But I don't own the team. It's a privately owned team. They can make their own decisions. We've given them every option that exists for the city of Chicago. And so far, they're not choosing any of those options.
Because we're talking to you. One last one. Do I hear you're leaving for Japan? And what do you hope to accomplish there?
Well, we'll have to see, because I'm not going to leave if we think that there are trims. Thank you. Appreciate you. Not going to leave if we're going to see troops marching into Chicago. But that I go on trade missions for the state.
Yeah.
I would say infrequently, but as often as I can to attract business, and it's working. We've got lots of companies coming to the state of Illinois as a result.
Governor, we really appreciate your time. I can't thank you enough. It's really been a pleasure.
Great to see you. Thank you very much. You bet.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Exclusive interview. NBC Chicago. The governor spoke this morning while he was out there on the walkway. Craziness. The other feed with the AP went down, but we also looking at a situation in Los Angeles. I just want to flip to Los Angeles a minute because we got Bearcats and craziness going on. Apparently LAPD's in some sort of standoff. I've been watching this on this other screen. Got some vehicle with somebody surrounded. We're going to put this up here shortly and just see what's going on as we monitor Chicago and Los Angeles, all around the country. Crazy stuff. It looks like it's also raining in Los Angeles. This is Los Angeles right now. So apparently they got a vehicle pinned in there. The situation. What the heck's going on around the country? Thank you for being a voice for the people and bringing the awareness. We appreciate you. Ambition, thank you. Thank you for that. Very grateful. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This is a situation in Los Angeles right now. Not shocking. I just wanted to come up here and see what this is. Find out details here. So they got a vehicle all pinned up in the corner. So the governor was planning on going to Japan, but he said he's not going to go if troops hit the ground in Illinois. So this is called Standoff Underway with a Nude Woman after Los Angeles police pursuit. See, LAPD has a nude woman here. Cornered, I guess. Around 7 a.m., police began pursuing a vehicle, which eventually came to a stop on South Supleva Boulevard near Montana Avenue in Westwood. The female driver did not immediately exit the vehicle, prompting a standoff with officers. So I know we were talking about Chicago. I just wanted to break in here and just kind of see this for a second. At this point, if she's not taken into custody, I would say at this point, it's only a matter of time. It's also raining out there, it appears. 3 armored vehicles as of 10 a.m. their time, which would be 1 p.m. Eastern. 3 armored police vehicles are surrounding the SUV, but the woman remained inside a vehicle. Heck is going on out there, man? I'll put this in the description of our live here. Call this a standoff. So that's the situation going on in Los Angeles here. To kind of give you the summary. Naked driver in standoff with LAPD. Heck's happening, folks? KTLA also has a feed up. They've been might have to do another live and monitor this situation. Definitely going to be monitoring the Chicago stuff each and every day. The governor plans to speak at a press conference. It's interesting that he was going out for a walk. Gave an exclusive this morning on the River Walk. The heck? Someone appears to be in a vehicle. A woman. Crazy stuff out there, man. These governors don't want to lose their illegal voters and criminals. They could care less about American safety and will go to any length to stop it. Let that sink in. The heck? Whoa. That's the pepper ball gun. That's the pepper ball gun. It's only a matter of time. They'll bring her out. Dead or alive. Let's hope alive. You don't want to see anyone get hurt. We don't want to see anyone get hurt here. It's pretty crazy, huh? Is she even alive in there? All right, what we're gonna do is we're gonna switch over to a new feed up here and then cover this since we had the topic of what's going on.